Well, hi, hello, how are you, everyone? Welcome to today's exciting episode of Flashback with Wes Britton, where you get to hear me and my co host, Karina Kansas, interview stars, entertainment insiders, and entertainers from every variety from times past, present, and future. So kick back, enjoy this next hour, and thanks for stopping by.
Hello, everyone. Wes Britton here. We're going to be talking with Dick here in just a few minutes, although I want to say something real quick before we get started. As we're recording this, Hurricane Sandy is beating on my door, and you may hear weird sounds like zombies are trying to break into my house or something. And maybe it is, but more likely it's some heavy winds. And so if you hear that in the background, don't panic. This is pre-recorded, so it's already happened, whatever happened. Anyway, Dick Wagner is going to be with us today, and he's got many, many stories to tell us because he's been in the rock and roll scene a very long time. The first time I remember hearing him was he was one of the twin guitarists on the classic Lou Reed album, Rock and Roll Animal, and after that he started working with Alice Cooper and wrote songs like Only Women Bleed and Welcome to My Nightmare. And after that got into producing more artists than I can name, so I'm going to let him do that in just a second or two. Right now, he's plugging a brand new book that he wrote that's called Not Only Women Bleed. And that's really an interesting kind of rock memoir because not only do you get a book, but there's 2 CDs that come with it. And, I'll let him tell you about the music on that, and we'll play you a sample here in a spell as we bring on the legendary Dick Wagner. Hi, Dick. Welcome.
Hey, Wes, how are you doing?
Well, I'm hoping I'll survive the day and the night. We'll see how it goes. It's rocking like a hurricane.
Yeah, I'm headed to Detroit right now. I'm on the highway, and the weather is starting to build up here. So maybe that's part of that same hurricane stretching out.
I'm sure it is.
I know it's going to be cold this week in Michigan.
Well, speaking of Detroit, that's kind of exactly where I wanted to begin, because when you came up, you were involved in the Detroit, Michigan rock scene, and back in the 60s, that was a pretty lively time to be involved, wasn't it?
It certainly was, yeah. I feel like I had a large part in establishing that music scene in Detroit, really.
Yeah,
I had a band called The Frost, a very famous band in the Midwest, and later I went on to Alice Cooper and became his band leader, lead guitar player, co-songwriter.
Well, before we get to that, describe what it was like to be in the rock scene in Detroit, because there was an awful lot of heavy bands coming out at the time, weren't there? Amboy Dukes and Grand Funk Railroad and on and on.
Yeah. What it was like, it was pure energy and, very vibrant, very into it, crowds of people. Local bands could draw like 25,000 people at a concert. It was pretty crazy, it was pretty wild, and it was just great fun. A lot of great music.
Would you describe most of that music as kind of working man's rock? As it kind of comes through in your book that this very much appealed to the working class, would you say?
That's what I would say. I mean, it's very much an industrial area at that time, Detroit, and, with the automobile industry and so on. So the kids who came out to see all these bands were basically blue-collar kids and, into their blue-collar attitude, which is, slightly rebellious and, full of energy and devil may care who gives them whatever. Just really great kids, and a great scene. A lot of great bands, and, we worked 7 nights a week. I mean, we could work as much as we wanted. And always had big crowds. So it was an amazing time, really.
So how was it you got involved in playing? Because you were playing guitar, and how did that get you gigging with groups?
How did I get involved in playing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I always wanted to play the guitar. And my dad finally got me an old Harmony acoustic guitar when I was maybe 16 and a half years old. And I just started copying things on records. I had a really good ear, so I could pick it up real easy, and I'd copy the songs. I learned the songs, which taught me song structure. And I just taught myself. I was self-taught guitar player and a self-taught songwriter. And I just got better and better over the years and finally got some success. But it started just because I happened to love the sound of the guitar. And I first heard it live when my Uncle John used to play guitar at like Christmas gatherings and holiday gatherings of the family. And we'd all sit around and we'd sing John Henry or Camptown Races or some of these old standard classic kind of folk songs, Americana folk songs.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned, read at the foot of my uncle on his guitar. And I was self-taught. I finally got the guitar, and bingo, I was really good at it right away.
Now, in those early days, you got to play with some rather interesting folks. Let's see if I can remember. You got to play with B.B. King and Little Richard and folks like that. Did I get that right?
You got it right, yeah. I played with B.B. King. I played with Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, several different people, and Del Shannon, and a lot of the big early rock and roll stars. And that was when I was about 17 years old, so I got a little touch of fame and glory vicariously by playing guitar with these people. That's kind of where I learned the roots of the music business.
Now, these are basically pickup bands where the artists would come to town and gather up local musicians, and you all had to learn their songs real quick. Is that right?
Yeah, and I had a band that was capable of doing that. So we just kind of fell into place and got those gigs, got the breaks, that helped propel us forward. And so I consider myself to be very fortunate, and I got really good really fast, which is kind of a bonus too. So I spent a lot of time working on it, though. I used to practice 10 hours a day and learn that you have to really focus on this, and you got to be dedicated, or you can't do it.
Do you have any
you
fond
can't
memories?
be handed to you.
Do you have any particular memories of any of those dignitaries that you helped back up? Little Richard, Roy Orbison, any of them? Or was it all just so quick and
I
fast?
have memories of all of them on some level. To me, it's more not as much about the memory as it is about the influence.
Mm-hmm.
And what each one of these characters that I worked with really added to, my drive and my motivation. Nothing really radical happened with anybody, but just the attitude and the feel of playing the music and being excellent at it really kept me motivated. Always moving, always practicing, always, learning to write, learning to play. It was all part of a formulation of an artist's career. You got to start somewhere, and if you're going to start at all, you got to try to start good. You got to demand excellence and perfection as close as you can get. And that was me. I was really driven.
Well, I guess we can kind of bring in the Lou Reed album, because that's where you really kind of came to international prominence, really. How was it that you and Steve Hunter were brought together to provide the guitar for that standout album? If it's not in your record collection.
Well, basically through Bob Ezrin, the producer, who knew both of us and put us together to work on Lou Reed's Berlin album. And that's where we had met before, but that's where we really first started working together. And then that became the band, and the band took the Berlin album and new arrangements and of old Lou Reed songs, put it all together, and went to Europe on tour. They came back and played some dates in the States and ended up in New York at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, where we got recorded live, and that's the Rock and Roll Animal album.
How did you and Steve find that wonderful way of weaving together your guitars? Because that's one of the things that really comes out through the album is you two guys trading leads and lines.
That was a purposeful decision. We decided that we were going to not try to one-upmanship each other, but to divide 50-50 on the lead guitar duties and the rhythm guitar duties. And so that's what we did. We split it up. With every song, we'd find the place for each one of us to play. And it just, by the nature of our playing, and not just the playing, but the attitude of playing, we were really compatible. And then when I decided to divide it up 50%, then it just made it work. That's all I can say. There was no one lead guitar player. There were two, and they each got to play half.
Now
so it was a kind of decision.
Now, they get this right that after that album, Lou was a little upset that he was being outshone by his guitar players, and that's why he broke up the band, and then you guys hooked up with Alice?
Yeah, I mean, Lou at first absolutely loved what I was arranging, and then when it got to be so that the reviews were more about the band and me and Steve Hunter, then he didn't like it anymore, and he wanted to change the style again. So, fine, so we were all out of a job, but the band was just inherently such a good band that when Alice called me to join up with him and become his co-songwriter and put a new band together, all I had to do was make a couple of phone calls, and he had his new band. It was the Lou Reed Band, but brought over to Alice Cooper. And then we started calling it the Nightmare Band because it was Welcome to My Nightmare. So it had at one time been the Rock and Roll Animal Band. Now it's the Welcome to My Nightmare Band. And it worked great with Alice because I had the duty of writing with him, coming up with new songs, new concepts, and the band was there to back me up in everything that I put together for them. So it just worked out very well.
Well, I guess it's easy to understand why he'd want to have you on board as a guitarist. How was it he said that he wanted to collaborate on the songwriting with you?
Well, evidently he admired my songwriting. I had met Alice in Detroit when we did a show together, the Frost and the Alice Cooper Band. And he heard my songs and heard me play. And so he was impressed enough to keep me in mind when he was ready to make a move. So that's kind of how it fell together.
I'm not sure I ever heard this story. Why did he decide to leave his original band and start with just himself and a whole new ensemble?
Because he wanted to go out of that way of playing rock and roll and into a more solo kind of thing, where he could also play Vegas or something like that. So in doing that, he needed to definitely have a little better musicianship behind him. And he couldn't get any better than the Rock and Roll Animal Band. I mean, that was just a sensational band. So it just worked out fortuitously that it was all able to come together.
I was sort of kind of ironic that after all his days with that original band, that the first single that came out was Only Women Bleed, which you'd think is a very different kind of song than you'd expect from Alice Cooper. How did that song come about?
Exactly. That's exactly. I mean, I had written the music for Only Women Bleed back in 1968. It was going to be a song for the Frost, but I never got the right lyrics for it. So in 1975, when I got together with Alice Cooper to put this new band together and do an album, I played Alice the music, and he loved it and suggested that he had a title called Only Women Bleed that he wanted to write. And so why not take that music that I had already written and take the title and then work a little bit on lyrics and come up with a song, which is what we did. It took us about a half hour, and then that was finished. And the rest is history because it's become a modern standard. It's been recorded by like 30 artists now. And, so it's a song that everybody knows and everybody relates to.
What is Alice like to collaborate with? Because the way it's sounding is you write the music and he writes the words. Is that always the way it is, or do you trade off on that?
It's pretty much that way. It's pretty much that way, but there is an intermingling between the two of us on ideas for music and lyrics from either one of us. Because I'm a pretty good lyricist myself, and he's got definite ideas and melodies and how to deliver a song. So it was a true collaboration, and we write quickly together. We listen to each other. We're able to say, I don't like that, and not insult the guy, or be insulted if he says it to you. It's got to be a real cooperation to become good collaborators. And with Alice and I, it was always great right from the very beginning. Plus, we have the same sense of humor, so we're always laughing about everything. And so it was really, truly a great collaboration.
Now, the next project you guys did together was Welcome to My Nightmare, and that was very different than Only Women Bleed. It's one of his theatrical concepts. How did that project come together?
Well, we were in the Bahamas trying to write a concept album. Still hadn't come up with the concept. But one day we went out on the lawn by the ocean, and we were sitting out there trying to work on songs when a tropical storm came up. And pretty soon it's 50-mile-an-hour winds, and we're sitting out there. And I just played this. I made up this riff on the guitar and played it. And when I did, it was a mood created really by the darkness of this tropical storm. And all of a sudden, Alice says, "Welcome to my nightmare." And it was done. At that moment, we realized that is the concept of the album. And it all went from there. It's real simple, but it's one of those moments,
Now, that's one of the stories you tell in your book, along with many, many, many stories about life on the road. Can you share with the folks?
Oh, I do, yeah. The whole book is really a kind of a poetic chronicalization of my life in the music business and what led me to getting into the music business, and then being inside the bubble of the 1970s and all the things that went down in that time. And I try to tell it with humor and pathos and with some true emotion and true honesty about what went on. So it's gets pretty profane, but it also gets very, very profound. So I recommend Not Only Women Bleed to anyone who wants to sit down and read something about the human condition within a person's life. It's funny. It's a great read, and we're having great success with it, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are worth saying about the book. First of all, folks, as you've heard the old phrase, sex, drugs, rock and roll. That could be the subtitle to this book, because there's a...
Well, it kind of is. It kind of is the subtitle. I mean, because that's what was going on, and I tell the tale. There's no doubt about it. I tell the story.
Well, not only did you work...
It's not like a filthy book or anything like that. It's not meant to be sexual. It just has sex, drugs, and rock and roll in it as part of the story. And I think anybody can relate to it is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anybody likes rock and roll, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But your career
or like
was...
sex. Or like drugs. I mean, you could like all of it, and you discover things in here about life under those conditions.
That's absolutely true, especially in the latter half where you kind of come to your recovery from all the things that had happened. But before we got to that, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your production work, because you didn't work with just Alice. You got involved with a lot of other heavy hitters, didn't you?
Oh, I mean, if you went to wagnermusic.com, which is my website, wagnermusic.com, you could look at my discography. It's right in there, and all of the artists I've worked with. And over the years, since the 1960s till now. And it's a pretty good list. It's like 3 or 4 pages long. It's very interesting. I worked with a lot of people, a lot of people.
Any particular stories you'd like to share about it? Because you got Aerosmith in there, and you've got.
Oh man, I just recommend you pick up the book. It's all in the book, really. And I'm trying to sell the book, really. I could tell stories all night, but
well, that's a reason.
Tour. Well, Wes, I'm in the middle of a tour. I'm in the middle of going out for all these book signings, and I've got gigs to play. And it's really hard for me to take enough time to really give it justice. But I'm just going to, one more time, I'm prejudiced, I know, but that book is a fantastic book. It's called Not Only Women Bleed. And all the stories are in there. They're very interesting.
And it also comes with 2 CDs. Why don't you tell the folks about the music they can get if they buy the book?
All right. I offered up my Full Meltdown album, which is a series of lost tracks that they disappeared on me back in 1979, and they were really great recordings, and they ended up at Atlantic Records and ended up in at Rhino Records, and then Rhino Records called me because they wanted to release it, but I said, no, those master tapes are mine, and so I put it out myself, and I've decided to include it along with the book. So when you buy the book, you get a CD, my Full Meltdown CD, and you also get a CD by my friend Gary Telgenhoff, who is the chief medical examiner for the city of Las Vegas. And he does autopsies and plays rock and roll. And I played guitar on his entire album, so it's got a lot of my work on it also. So I decided to put those 2 CDs, help my friend Gary put his in there, and do my own record. And so you get the book, you get 2 CDs, and a big picture gallery, which is real interesting because there's a lot of things from the 70s in there. And it's quite a package, it really is.
It really is. It's kind of hard to say, folks, which is the bonus, the CDs with the book or the book with the CDs. Of course, you can't go wrong either way. So I guess
you can't, really.
So I guess we should probably kind of wrap things up, I suppose, and do that by playing a sample from Full Meltdown. And I had a hard time with that. There's a number of songs I'd love to do, but I settled on Ecstasy. Can you tell the folks the story of Ecstasy?
Well, there's not much story behind that. It's just it's a kind of sexy song, but it's definitely a 1970s style rock and roll song. And you'll hear it right now. And Wes, thank you, man. I appreciate this, and it was great talking to you.
And folks, the CD is Full Meltdown that comes with Not Only Women Bleed.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget that all past shows are archived on the Artist First Radio Network. And join us next week for another exciting episode of FlashBack.